In order to make sense of this level of complexity, of all different perspectives that people have, this is what we use system thinking for. System thinking is about having, as it is said in the graph, a wider vision, trying to open up our minds, to open our perspective in order to incorporate, to bring together all those different understanding that people have. Because remember, people have different understanding of a situation. And if I really want to make sense of the situation, of the problem I'm facing, the best thing that I can do is to inform myself better in order to absorb from the experiences from all those having an interest or being able to participate in a given situation. The general system theory um, is associated with the work of people, and it can be traced back to more than 200 years ago. However, the name system thinking comes from the work of Ludwig von Bertalanffy. He was a biologist who understood that those systems, of course, biological systems, better able to understand, in this case, cope with what the level of uncertainty they have around it. Those were in a better position in order to survive over time. So this capability was associated with the level of organic understanding, adaptation to the conditions that these systems were faced. Of course, the ideas of system thinking can be traced back as long as the time of the big or the great Greek philosophers. Heraclitus, for instance, he talked and referred to the dynamic conception of reality. What he understood was that reality changed, that things do not stay still for a period of time. That's why he said, no man can step in the same river twice, because both the river and the person had changed, even if you come the next day. Because once you have experienced the beauty, the freshness of the water, next time you come, you already got that experience. And based on what you got is that you have expectations. It will be completely different to swim in a river for the second time compared to the experience it was when you jump or get into the river for the first time. Both the river and the person is a complete different entity. Only by the simple element associated with experience the person has had. If I could give a definition of what a system is, I would like to say that a system can be understood as a collection of parts that interact in order to have a number of emergent properties. And this is a central concept on this understanding of what a system is. This idea of emerging properties. This is one of the keys because as a manager, you want to make sure that all the interactions between the different components of your company, of your family, of your country are such that you get these emergent properties to appear. And I need to give you a few examples. One example of a system is our body. Our body is composed by a number of different subsystems. The nervous system, the respiratory system, the circulatory system, and so on and so forth. So those subsystems made up each one of us. And each subsystem has an important role to play. However, could you please tell me what part of your body thinks? What part of your body breathes? What part of your body walks? We can talk, walk, breathe, or think as a result of the interaction between the different parts. You can say the brain thinks. Well, not necessarily. If the heart stops, there'll be no thinking. You can say the lungs do the breathing. But again, if you don't have the instruction for the uh, nervous system to make the lungs to open and close and uh, breathe in the air, your lungs will not be breathing. So it is the interaction of the different systems that allow us to do all the things that we can do. Think, walk, all those beautiful things that we're able to do is an emerging property. And again, as a manager, you can easily realize that the emergent properties are exactly what you want the people working with you to have in place. Loving a person is an emerging property, as it is hating somebody. Hate is an emerging property. You don't hate in automatic. It is the result of an interaction with something else. You hate a situation because you have a negative experience of that situation. You love somebody because you get to know the person. You grow together. You share dreams. But again, those feelings, hate and love, is the result of an interaction between a situation and yourself, between a person and yourself. And those are the emerging properties. And as managers, you need to make sure those emerging properties are the ones that you want. And the best example I can come with is those of different uh, sport teams. If you like sports, whatever sport you like, you know that there are teams which might not be the best team, but they are the ones who win the championship. And that is because they are connected in such a way that the performance is outstanding. But once you look at each one of the components, each one of the players on its own, they might not be the best. You might even assemble the best players in the world, but they will not be performing. Okay, even though they are the best at their position, they are the best at what they do. When they get together, they don't really get along. And that's why they don't produce the emerging properties, which is an outstanding level of play. That's what managers are so prized, and that's why they are sacked. Once they are not able to make all these different elements to connect in the right way. Let me take a different example. If you go to the doctor and you say, Doctor, I'm not feeling right. My body temperature is so high. I'm having these different symptoms. What the doctor does, he or she makes sure that, first of all, each one of the different parts of the body is working fine individually. But then he or she makes sure that the connections, the interactions are the ones they are supposed to be. If some of these interactions are not working right, there's something wrong. And that's when you have all these illnesses. It might be associated with one of the parts not being right. But more often than not, all these illnesses that we have is the result of a bad interaction between different parts. And if you ask me, guys, in the context of an organization, what is the main problem that you face is people not getting along with people working alone. You don't like your fellow colleagues. You don't like your fellow workers. And more, and as I already said, that is the most time consuming activity as a manager, making sure people understand and they go to the same direction. They don't pull away from what you want all these people to behave or to work for. It would be important to establish or to set a few warnings. What I've been saying is system thinking is about increasing our level of understanding. Because when we understand a situation better, we are better placed to find an adequate solution. One of the warnings of the messages in the small print says that having an adequate definition of a problem help us to increase our chances of dealing with the problem. It doesn't guarantee it. It just increases the possibility that we are in a better position They were better placed in order to deal with the problem. Again, these days, unfortunately, we know what people are suffering from in so many instances where we don't have a cure. AIDS, cancer, coronavirus. People are suffering from that specific illness and we don't have a solution. But once we understand clearly what this person is suffering from, at least we're in a better position. If not to cure, at least to help them better. When you don't have an idea what somebody's suffering from, any decision or any action you take could be even worse because don't understand what is the problem the person is having. Another important comment or warning. No cure is obtained by having a perfect diagnosis. You only understand what the problem is. That's it. To solve the problem, you need to implement changes. Sometimes we are clear what is required, but we might not have the resources. We know what will make us free again to travel, to be alone, to meet at the university, to meet your friends, to go on a party. We need to be vaccinated. We know what the solution is, but that doesn't solve the problem. There are not enough vaccines at the moment. We have to wait a little. So even if you realize what the problem is, finding the solution is not easy. But the first step is understand what the problem is. Another important comment is that although there are there are many illnesses for which we don't have a solution yet, even though we understand what the problem that person is suffering from. However, a good prognosis, understanding what the problem is, tends to be the best starting point. At least you know what the problem is. And if you want to solve it, the first point is understand what that situation is. I like this quote from the Prussian philosopher, German nowadays, Hegel, who said that the piece of a puzzle makes sense when you look at the whole puzzle. On its own, make no sense. Once you look that puzzle as part of a bigger picture, this is when things are becoming clearer. However, as it is expressed there in that quote by Michel Proust, the real voyage of discovery starts when you have new eyes, different ways of understanding. And that, guys, that's what we in this model want to create on you. As I said on Monday, this will not be easy because what I want you to do is against intuition. It is a slow process. It takes time. It is not as automatic. It is not as like maths. They say, okay, this is a problem, this is a procedure, this is the way you do it, this is the answer. No. In this one, we want to equip you with different strategies in order to make sense of this complex situation I've been referring to. I will probably stop with this final concept, which is about what is reality. Of course, you would say, well, reality is the table that I have in front of me, or the computer or the tablet that I'm using. But that's physical reality. Social reality might not be as easy to describe. One of the more important philosophers, Immanuel Kant, he used to say that social reality is too complex for us to make sense of it. For what I've been saying, people have different interpretations, different ideas. And it has to do also with our own limitations. We can see, we can touch, we can smell, we can taste. But even though we have these beautiful senses that help us to make sense of the world we live in, we cannot touch or feel or hear feelings. And we all act based on feelings, on ideas. We cannot see the ideas. We can see when somebody has an idea. We can see what the effect of an idea is. We can, if you want, you can smell love. Probably you can. But even if you do, that will not necessarily help us to understand why some people love more things than others. Why some people are so crazy about the football team. Why some people are so detached from some things more other people are so in love with. Why you love a singer, a movie artist, and so on and so forth. There are so many things. So there is this level of complexity. According to Kant, our main limitations is not cognitive, but the bias limitations we have. And those bias limitations is associated with the beliefs, the values, the experiences we had in the past. And I highlight there, once again, the main challenge as a manager, perceptions and expectations. Everybody will have a different expectation and perception of all the situations you are facing. The fact that you're working for the same company, it doesn't mean everybody will believe in what you think. Nobody, it means not everybody in automatic will necessarily buy in whatever you're trying to sell. They might be still part of the organization, but they might not necessarily join on whatever you want them to. According to Immanuel Kant, he highlighted the idea that there is a difference between the world as it is, what he called the noumena, and the world as it appears. And guys, we all act in the world as it appears. If I told you you have the possibility of buying the vaccine and jump the queue, you don't have to wait for till the end of the year to get vaccinated, and then you can go on parties. Will you pay for the vaccine? Even though it means you'll be jumping the queue, and probably an old guy or an old lady will have to wait, and waiting probably means for this old guy or old lady too late, that they'll be paying a price in the terms of their life. Well, I'm pretty sure some people say, yeah, I'll do it. Somebody will say, I'll wait. Well, we act in the world as we see it. We cannot say the world is like this, because again, we have interpretations, we have different experiences. That's why we cannot know for sure, or we cannot define what reality is. We can create an idea. We could have an experience of the world, but that will be our own experience. That's why we need to work with things as they appear. And that's why I have that illustration. The world is not as it seems. The world might be completely different to the way I interpret things. And that's what I say. This module has this confrontational element. We want you to shake you. We want you to understand that if some people see things in a different way, that person is not right. It's not wrong. Apologies. It's not wrong. That doesn't make you an evil person. It may only be the case that that person has a different experience in life. Another important analyst, in this case a philosopher, analyzing what reality is, has been Friedrich Hegel, German again. And Hegel says that, yeah, reality is too complex. Reality will be so difficult to describe. However, if we work together, if we share our mutual understanding of what we are seeing, we could increase our perspective, widen up our scope, increasing our level of understanding. And this is what is known as the Hegelian process, this dialectical process of a thesis, antithesis, and a synthesis. I say something, and then you say, no, Roberto, you're wrong. You're not taking into consideration A, B, C, D, E, and so on and so forth. And they say, okay, you might be right about A and B, but about the C issue, please consider these elements. If you are willing to learn as much as I am, we all will be learning. And we will be able to understand life as it is from different perspectives. And all the strategies we're going to learn in these models are about that, are about increasing the level of understanding. Remember, we want to make sense of a complex world. And given the level of complexity, it will be impossible for a single person to make sense of everything he or she faces. We need others to come together in order to understand better. Because once we understand, we're in a better position to solve a problem. Solving the problem is not an easy peasy process. It might be too complex. Or as I said before, it might be even impossible to solve the problem. But at least you know what the problem is. Let me move forward. And remember, I will highlight only a couple of issues here. If I ask you what is reality, what is social reality, everybody will have a definition. That's why we cannot aspire for replicability, measurability, and controllability of an issue. All we can aspire for is a better understanding, widening of options. We cannot control every single issue of life as we know it, but we can aspire to understand it better. So as a corollary, you can say that in a system, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. And those additional elements, that more part, are the emergent properties. Those are the additional elements. No part of our body talks. We can talk as a result of the interaction of different parts of our body. And that is an emergent property. And therefore, as a decision maker, you want to make sure that the interaction of the parts are set in a way that you get positive emergent properties. You will have a positive or a negative emergent properties because the interactions are the wrong one. That could happen in a family, with a couple, in a team, in a group of friends. I'm pretty sure you love your friends and you're looking forward to meet again because every time you are with them, you have joy. And joy is an emergent property. It appears as a result of the interaction. You can say somebody is fun, but fun comes from the interaction you have between people. Even a fun person will not be as fun if that person is isolating from the rest of the world. It's through the interaction that you get and experience these beautiful feelings. And the same applies for the negative ones. So before you start experiencing a negative feeling between, given the interaction that you have with this video that is getting too long, and before you start cutting short the video, let me just stop at that point. Love and hate are emergent properties, the result of an interaction. So before you